What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Dungeon Master Experience. In this video, we're diving into the fantastic Dungeon Master Experience articles by Chris Perkins. He's one of the lead designers of Dungeons & Dragons. We'll explore his invaluable insights and advice to enhance your skills as a Dungeon Master and create unforgettable D&D experiences for your players. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Dungeon Master Experience. This episode is called It's About Time, and it's from July 7th, 2011. Now, just looking at the title, I think the article is probably going to be about time travel or something like that. But according to the last article, it was talking about how to bring back heroes or villains or things like that from the dead. So what I'm guessing this is going to be about is somehow using time travel to reintroduce old villains or heroes or characters or things like this. And now, if you're looking at the picture here, it shows some sort of war-forged character or something of that nature holding up his own head, which indicates some sort of a time travel scenario. And what it absolutely reminds me of instantly is the Star Trek The Next Generation episode called The Arrow of Time. It's a two-parter, if I remember correctly. And also, if I remember correctly, it was awesome. And just like how it always happens in Star Trek when they go back in time, they don't have any money, so to generate money, they always gamble. And I think that's how that episode started, is they're like gambling in the Old West or something like that after time traveling. I don't really remember. But anyway, that's what it reminds me of. So let's jump into this article and read it together and see what Chris Perkins has to say about time. Monday night, the heroes have traveled to the Feywild in search of a knowledgeable arc wizard, only to discover that Lamia has taken over the wizard's tower in his absence. Having seduced the wizard's apprentice, she's convinced him to help her locate the talisman hidden somewhere in the tower. The heroes defeat the Lamia, break her spell on the apprentice, and wait for the Arc Wizard to return, whereupon he calls forth the Leoman's secret chest and offers them the talisman inside as their reward. With it, he says they can travel back in time. So there you have it. Looks like we nailed it on what this article is going to be about. And if you've been following along on this series, there's been several articles all throughout it that have mentioned time travel and time travel talismans. If you're interested in watching the videos for the other articles that I've done already, there's a playlist on my channel that'll let you watch them all. Plus, I'll go ahead and throw the link to that playlist in the description. So that'll be there. Anyway, I think his use of the time travel talismans is actually really cool. And one of the cool things that he mentioned in another article is that instead of doing like a retcon to change something that they did, the players and the Dungeon Master didn't really quite like the way it turned out in the campaign, they actually do it in universe by using time travel talismans to undo certain events or character deaths or different ways the plot unfolded that perhaps maybe it could have gone another direction. So there's always that option in his universe to have a time travel talisman to go set right where once went wrong, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's keep on going with this article and see what he has to say about time. This week, I'd planned to discuss the dramatic impact of bringing back long-lost characters and NPCs. However, a question posed by Kilkameth concerning last week's article has prompted me to veer off on a tangent. The question is, how do you keep players involved in the game once their characters are killed off? My stock answer is have them play something else. Anything else. Have them play an NPC companion. Hand them a monster stat block. Or have them return as ghostly apparitions that haunt the party until raise dead rituals can be cast. Anything is better than having players fall asleep at the game table. In the case of one Monday night player, I decided it'd be time to bring back an old character that the game group had all but forgotten. The Monday night group recently lost two characters, the Genesai sword mage Uriel, played by Nick DiPetrillo, and the Eladrin warlord Andros, played by Michelle Carter. They fell prey to a death knight with a soul-eating sword. Fortunately, Nick had a backup character among the crew of the party's ship, the Maelstrom. Michelle's situation was a bit more complicated. She didn't have a ready-to-play backup character, or so she thought. Earlier in the campaign, the heroes used the Arc Wizard's Hourglass Talisman, a single-use wondrous item of my own invention, to travel back in time and meet themselves in the past. It was a great way to escape their present predicament, and afforded them the rare chance to team up with themselves and effectively play twins for a session or two. The two identical parties joined forces to face a common threat, but Andrast was the only character to survive the adventure with a living twin. Michelle didn't want to play two identical characters for the rest of the campaign, so Andrast Prime stayed with her companions while Andrast Past conveniently left the group to pursue other quests and interests. Andrast Past was absent from the campaign for over a year of game time, about 10 levels of play. So even Michelle was surprised when her character's temporal twin reappeared shortly after Andrist Prime's demise. The trick for me was concocting a situation that would logically reunite Andrist Past with the other heroes. To my credit, I had previously set up a major quest to rescue Andrist's father, an Eladrin wizard of some repute, who had been arrested for conspiracy. It made perfect sense that Andrist Past would learn of her father's incarceration, particularly since the news had been delivered to her temporal twin via Sending Stone. I decided it was possible for Andrist Past to overhear messages intended for Andrist Prime. You've seen this trick used many times in TV shows and movies. Having suffered a great loss or setback, the heroes are drowning their sorrows when a familiar face appears out of the blue. It might be the face of salvation, or a harbinger of worse things to come. Either way, it's a tried and true cliche that can be surprisingly rousing, particularly if the character is beloved or reviled. I used a similar trick once with a villain who'd cloned himself. As I recall, his sudden reappearance was greeted with gasps of, "Oh no," followed by shaking of fists. Remember the scene in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek when Spock Prime first appears in the ice cave? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I do, Chris Perkins, and I made a Star Trek reference of my own just a minute ago, so that's cool. But they had Tasha Yar come back as a Romulan, if I remember right. Remember that? Tasha Yar's daughter came back as a Romulan or something? Anyway, I could be making that up. Let's move on. Andrist Past filled the hole left behind by poor Andrist Prime, but not perfectly. In order for Michelle to effectively play Andrist Past, she needed a quick download of that character's recent accomplishments. Just the highlights. This required some prep work on my part, and the information I provided gave Michelle a sense of the experiences that had shaped Andrist Past once she'd left the party. Of course, she was free to swap out her old gear for new stuff as appropriate, and for Michelle, these events afforded her the opportunity to redefine Andrist's relationship with the other heroes and play a version of the character with her own agenda and aspirations. So what are the lessons learned? Time travel is a great storytelling tool, but like a chainsaw, it comes with a warning label. I've never read the warning label on my chainsaw, just FYI. Used unwisely, it can mutilate your character's campaign, as it demands a great deal of forethought and caution. I once subjected the Monday Night group to the effects of an arcane contraption that teleported them into the future, the specifics of which are discussed in my blog. And I just tried the link, it's a dead link. Maybe I could harness time travel and use the Wayback Machine, but nah. It was shocking and fun, but it took weeks of preparation since I needed to figure out all the ways in which future Iomandra was different than the current Iomandra. In general, the farther into the future you travel, the more gaps need to be filled. Also, there are many complex factors to consider, such as determining which characters are still alive in the future and which tragic fates befell the ones that aren't. My dalliance with time travel in the Iomandra campaign has taught me a few things. If you use time travel, be ready for the unexpected. The past is easier to navigate than the future. Keep the rules for time travel as simple as possible. Don't introduce time travel if you're worried about players altering your campaign's history or acquiring items or information normally beyond their reach. Just as I view time travel as a fun way to mess with my players, they see time travel as a fun way to mess with my campaign. As for the rules of time travel, you need to determine how to handle temporal paradoxes, and the extent to which the heroes can affect change. When I decided to give the Monday players the Hourglass Talisman, I did so with the full understanding that the heroes could go back in time, meet themselves, and change the course of history. But imagine if a character travels back in time and kills his parents before he's born. What happens next? Does the character suddenly disappear, having effectively erased himself? Or is he a separate entity from his unborn self and therefore unaffected? Probably best not to overthink it, but there needs to be an underlying logic that the players can follow. Otherwise, you're playing a game without rules, and that will cause your campaign to crack and fall apart. My own rules for time travel are simple. I'm excited. I love time travel rules, guys. I really do. Okay, let's see what these time travel rules are. A character traveling through time is removed from play in the present timeline. A character traveling to the past or future is not affected by the changing states of creatures around him, including older and younger versions of himself. He can be wounded and killed as normal, but nothing adverse happens to him if his younger or older self is injured or dies. Time travel effects have durations. No matter how far into the past or present a character travels, he only gets to stay there for a finite amount of time before the time travel effect ends and he returns to the time and place whence he came. In this way, time travel is like an elastic band. Eventually, the time traveler gets pulled back to the exact time and place he left, minus any gear he left behind or resources he expended. This is true even if the character dies in the past or present. If a character acquires an item in the past or future, he still has the item when he returns to his normal time. So if the character travels into the future, kills an evil wizard, and takes the wizard's staff back to the present, the character now has the staff, and the wizard, who is technically still alive, does not. These rules don't address every corner case that comes up during play, and thoughtful players might discover and exploit a few loopholes. If they do, you'll have to improvise. If improvisation isn't one of your strengths, it's probably best to forego time travel for the time being, rather than let it disrupt or destroy your otherwise spectacular campaign. Until the next encounter. Alright y'all, that was super cool. Let's discuss these time travel rules for a moment here. So a character traveling through time or being removed from the present timeline, totally understandable, they're gone, they poof out of existence. That makes sense. Now the second one's the one that kind of gets me, and then the example about the staff. So it says a character traveling to the past or future is not affected by the changing states of creatures around him. So that's going to be like that one movie with Bruce Willis where I don't remember what he did, hurt himself in the past or shot his younger self or something, and then it affected his older self. So that doesn't work in Chris Perkins' timeline world. But the one that's kind of curious is where it says you travel to the future, kill an evil wizard, and take their staff back to the present. It says now your character has the staff, and the wizard who's technically still alive does not. The younger version of the wizard who you haven't taken the staff from yet doesn't have the staff anymore. I don't really get it. You know what? It's actually hurting my head, so we're going to end it there. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. I'm glad you're here. Click the like button. It's all good. I hope everything is good in your life. I'll see you next time. Later.